You know, Charles, the kazoo orchestra was so popular on the Christmas show that I figured we'd go with kazoo orchestra for this. Hello, Charles.
It's great to see you. It's the final show for us of this year, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. You know, the Very Corsi Christmas special has been hugely popular. I've been getting so many really nice emails from people, and the social engineers are jumping out of their skin to make counter programming because they just can't deal not only with the clever comedic timing that you deliver, Charles, but on a serious note, the synergy of information between all those guests, I think it did everything I wanted it to do.
It was your idea, and it was a wonderful idea and a lot of fun to do it. And you know, it was even a pleasure to go out to New Jersey, which is something you don't hear me say more than once every 10 years.
You don't hear too many people say that at all. But I thought it was important to do. 2020 was an important year for Dr. Corsi overcoming the malicious prosecution of Robert Mueller's special special counsel. And I didn't realize this, but when we did a segment, you know, with Mrs. Corsi prior to the main show, and they were talking about how the Christmas prior was destroyed by this. And it's really interesting to observe, Charles, because I think this is a very standard, extremely underhanded tactic of lawyers to, and they did it in Congress as well, to drop the flaming dog turd lunch bag on your doorstep right before Christmas. They did it to all of America so that people were there having their Christmas dinners, sitting around with family and everybody that they don't see for a year, arguing. I mean, my cousin didn't want his kids to even hear what I had to say about it. He didn't want to sway them. Right. But we'll watch MSNBC and CNN all day.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to my early years out of business school when I got out in 1980. And yeah, we were still fighting a hot war, a cold war with Russia, the Soviet Union and China, and things were rough. The economy was a mess thanks to Nimrod peanut farmer Carter and his absurd team, in quotes, of high-level cabinet officials. I mean, the world was a mess back then. Yeah. But at least inside this country, the government didn't have the type of power that it today has. Because of advances in technology and
surveillance, you mean?
Well, surveillance and the ability to change your credit decision, to seize your assets, to show up unannounced and
shut off your money,
shut up your social media, monitor your email. We've given tools that are way too powerful to people, who like to spend time saying that so-and-so shouldn't be allowed to drink and so-and-so should only have so many sodas, and now you're going to send the bug-eyed barmaid into maybe be Bernie Sanders as vice president in 2024, God forbid.
That's
somebody who doesn't, in her own major, does not understand basic elements of her own major, yet has a degree from a serious university. And when she gets caught out, uses as her excuse, well, I don't know, I can't be expected to know everything. I mean, that's not the kind of person that you want to give all power to in a construct that seems to be the one so too many people are comfortable with. I mean, the idea of the American government was in the beginning that it would be limited. It was extremely limited in the first go-round of the Articles of Confederation. But I don't think any of us have signed up for the idea that we're going to take somebody and put him or her or them on a pedestal and let them control every aspect of your life and let them make every decision for you in their all-knowing wisdom. I mean, that's not what I signed up for. And I don't think it's what the mass of American humanity believes is the right thing to have. So, if we're going to go and allow people like that, I shouldn't use the word, so I will, moron, John Brennan, to go and be head of the CIA, somebody who, to say that he's not in the mainstream, I mean, he should not be outside the prison population of a high security prison, let alone, how did that guy get to be head of the CIA? To give people like that the kind of power they have, and, dopey James Comey and Robert Mueller at the FBI, these individual Congress people, Adam Schiff, who can go get your telephone records, without having a warrant to intervene in the process. I mean, we've come to a place where I think the American public on the right and the left actually will join hands and say, you know what? If history has shown us anything from 1989 forward, it is that bigger is not better, bigger bureaucracies are not better. Disruption is an important thing that has made lives actually a lot better across many industries that used to be tightly controlled. Pick telecom as one. And big government needs to be disrupted. This notion that we should surrender the important freedoms that were won through the course of 1776 through 1789, that we should surrender those to people who are quite willing to put their heel on your neck and push as hard as they can until you give them everything that you want. I mean, that is not what we want in this country, and there are too many examples of people behaving like that in both political parties, and even people like Bernie Sanders, who, last I checked, is not even a Democrat, but thinks that he should be the Democratic candidate for president.
He's an independent, right? I mean, he's a communist. People said that when I was like, oh, maybe Bernie Sanders, and I was like, that's ridiculous, but I'm now convinced that he is.
Communist. He's just the craziest. I mean, the guy's. I mean, I really think it would be sort of amusing, as I don't know if we can do this, if we could set up some sort of a race, where you have the Grand Prix and you have the Indianapolis 500. And what you do is you get those Zimmer frames, and we get the people who
Zimmer frames.
Those are those those walkers that people use, or unsteady on their feet. And you could have the various people who are 70 and up race those Zimmer frames in the background as we have the Democratic debate. It would be a lot more fun to watch that.
I found a walker, Charles.
That's a big walker.
Yeah, that goes with our previous episode.
But can you find a Zimmer frame? You'll see what I'm talking about.
Zimmer?
Yeah.
Sure. I'll take a look for it here.
It would be. I mean, I suppose it would be pretty funny to have. Smaller versions of those Zimmer frames being pushed by old hamsters. Yeah, these kind of things.
Okay.
And we'll see with a blindfold on and see who can make it around the track the most times and win.
Joe Biden needs one of these.
Bernie, Joe, Pelosi, anyone who's 70 and up gets a Crowdsource the Truth Zimmer frame.
Hytham G is on Super Chat in Crowdsource the Truth 2, telling us OAN puts Mad Cow on defamation lawsuit about Russia. I saw that.
Oh yeah, no, that's absolutely. And Mad Cow is in deep trouble.
Because she said they were like literally paid Russian propaganda or something like that?
Well, and her defense, it's the kind of defense, I know someone else tried this defense, didn't work too well for the person. Her defense is to say, well, everybody knows that when I say something and suggest it's a fact, it's not necessarily a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Rachel, that's really going to be helpful to your investigative journalism career.
There was something else that came up. Laura Loomer has a lawsuit going against Facebook, and one of the things that they said in their defense was that they're a publisher of content. So that was their defense, but that goes against their protection as simply a network. Right. So it's interesting to see where all these lawsuits will go. It seems like lawyers always have a way to argue stuff no matter what happens, and we're seeing that with the impeachment as well.
Well, when I was in my hothead phase in college, when I never really was that much of a hothead, but in that phase, I remember there was a march in Skokie. Where the Nazis were allowed to march in Skokie, Illinois, which is, I think, I don't think it's a suburb of Chicago. I think it's in Illinois, where there are a lot of Jewish people. And I was rather amazed that the American Civil Liberties Union was defending the Nazis.
And I think even a Jewish lawyer.
Right, and so the principle there, it's not actually, it takes a while to think it through and realize that this is actually the right way to do it. You want these ass clowns to speak, and you want these opinions out there, and you want the public to listen to them and say, these are ass clowns, and they need to be disciplined, and here's the truth. They say this is a bunch of lies, here's the truth. That was the whole idea behind freedom of speech. In Jefferson's conception of it way back when. And so this idea that you'd have Twitter, and there's Facebook and Twitter, and I suppose you could say Google, but really Facebook and Twitter primarily, that you're going to let I don't care if the person's 65 or 25, somebody who has little experience in politics and economics just slap things down, just somebody says something, you just take it right off the internet, whether
Yeah.
it's Trump or some raving lunatic. I think if you're going to have a system where you're allowing people to post anonymously,
Yeah.
then you just have to have all that garbage up there. If you one nice control would be to say no longer can you do that. If you want to post, you have freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom of speech anonymously.
I agree with that, Charles. I think particularly on YouTube, if people want to just watch anonymously, you should be able to do that. I did notice that YouTube has introduced some sort of incognito feature. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm sure troublemakers will find ways to make trouble with that. But I agree with what you're saying. People have the right to view it anonymously, but if you want to create content, whether it be videos
Right.
or comments, you should have to be a known entity. It's the same problem we're having with this whistleblower
Right.
who they say Trump outed. How is retweeting a public web page outing somebody?
Right, and where's the balance in all this? I mean, you have somebody who went through an election, went through a vicious set of primaries to, knock down a bunch of establishment favors, including Jeb Bush and others.
Jeb? Yeah. Oh, because he speaks Spanish?
Right. Jeb, sí. And many others went through that torture chamber and then took on the hag and destroyed her because he actually campaigned, spending less than half of the money that she spent in an election she thought she'd run.
It's a very good result.
And now, exactly, and now we're approximately 11 months away from the next election, and this raging Dumkov, Schiff and the various people behind Schiff all think it makes sense to allow an anonymous person, to allow and then protect an anonymous person who certainly is not an unbiased player, is a partisan hack. From what I can tell, if it is the person whose name is being bandied around, that person can disrupt the entire world in a process here where we're flouting the Constitution. Instead of getting things done in Washington, D.C., is yet another excuse to have people who are on the record in the Clinton impeachment. And we're going to bring you back to the Clinton impeachment in a few slides from now, because there's some details even I had forgotten about. People who, during the Clinton impeachment, were fond of saying the White House, that is to say Clinton, absolutely can coordinate with Tom Daschle, the Senate Majority Leader. Absolutely. That's Schumer saying that. Pelosi saying that you shouldn't do this impeachment unless it's broadly bipartisan. And you just look at what they said then in 1998. Now, 21 years later, they're saying exactly the polar opposite. And people are not that stupid. I mean, there are...
Some people are that stupid.
I'd say the bottom 20% of the class, which would be the star players, it would seem, amongst the Democratic candidates. There's some people there who'll believe anything. But I think the heart of America, the people who actually make sure that their annual or their monthly incomes are, to the extent possible, greater than their monthly expenses, and are looking after their wider family and themselves responsibly, those people look at this and they say, there's a reason I'm turning off all politics, that I don't read the New York Times and the Washington Post anymore. I'd rather read the instruction book for a piece of Korean junk,
The barbecue grill from Home Depot.
Exactly.
It's always like, wait a minute, this piece isn't in the box. This isn't even English.
I'd rather read that 40 times than read like 2 pages of the New York Times or the Washington Post today. But anyway, to the art department, once again, in case people are having difficulty reading the face of the person who's the main character here.
Schiff LaMotta?
Yeah, that's what happens when Adam Schiff gets a pounding. The pounding that I think this should be after like one round in a 15-round match where there are no referees, because the objective here is to pound this face into smithereens.
Could be his first day in jail with Ed Buck.
Exactly, the first hour. And then you've got, what do you think Senator Schumer is saying there?
No cheese on the hamburger.
No, I think it's our friend.
Yeah.
You got the Amazon thing. The look on his face.
Oh, right. Oh, yes, right. You better put some ice on that. Right. I forgot. Whoops. Oh, I totally screwed up the joke, Charles. Sorry, people couldn't see that.
That's all right.
Sometimes this comedy timing, it's hard to do. But yeah, that's the book from Juanita Broderick. You better put some ice on that. I'm still amazed how few people are aware of her ordeal and think that Bill Clinton is a great guy. And if we did a Venn diagram of those people and the people who wanted to throw out Brett Kavanaugh, it would actually be just a circle.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you even have that librarian, she looks like a librarian, which I think librarians are great people, Amy Klobuchar, was quoted in the last week or so saying that Hillary Clinton would have made a fantastic president. Anyway, so there's Schumer telling Schiff to put some ice on that, and Nancy Pelosi, has got her 150-watt smile on, belying the fact that there's nothing between those ears. I mean, there are people.
There's a lot of booze sloshing around in there, Charles. Give her some credit.
But I love it when you have who was it? The guy, the guy who was saying about Obama, Chris Matthews, was saying about Obama and the Obamacare idea. He was saying, maybe I watch him talk just like this. Maybe the issue with Obama is that we, the intelligentsia, are not smart enough to appreciate his genius.
Right.
And similarly, people are saying, oh, this Pelosi move, she's got Donald Trump just where she wants him. He's fallen into this trap. I mean, no. She should go back and run around with her constituents doing what they like to do in San Francisco and pretending that that's
pooping in the streets.
Pooping in the streets and pretending that that's really civilized.
Yeah.
And saying people, those people in flyover country don't know how to live the way we do. Intense pooping on the street.
Right. Intense pooping on the streets. It's not just mild pooping. But, Charles, there was two things that came up. Tom Daschle was the unwitting recipient of anthrax, maybe from Robert Mueller. There's a whole story having to do with Porton Down and how it was weaponized anthrax, this spore powder. Like regular anthrax, it's kind of hard to catch. That was weaponized anthrax, and not just any old person could make it. But that caused Tom Daschle to retire, I think, from Congress, didn't it? After that
I
anthrax
don't know about
thing?
that, yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to tell you is somebody asked Joe Biden if he became president, two questions. First of all, if his teeth would be able to stay in his mouth. Answer was no. Second, that's not true. Second question was, would he appoint Obama to the Supreme Court? And he's like, yeah.
He said, yeah, if he'd take the job. But, it's amazing. I got a phone call over the weekend from the great Utrice Lead, who is a long time. She previously was head of the senior person at WBAI, which is a radio station that's hard left that is, I think, closed.
Randy Credico.
They went out of business, and then she went over to Progressive Radio. She's been in Progressive Radio now for quite a while, and we hadn't spoken in quite a few months, and we'll be on the air, I guess, sometime this coming week, reprising what happened in the last year. And she's a person who is, and I admire her. We disagree on economics, on certain economic issues. She is from the Caribbean area, and she loathes Obama. She really thinks he's a poser, that he did not really accomplish much for the minority community while he was president. He had a golden opportunity.
$65 million.
I know. Well,
That's pretty good accomplishment.
That's right. Here's your tip. But anyway, so I got a call from her, and during the 2016 period, I actually started going. May of 2016, I started going on her show. Here, she's from Trinidad. That's exactly right. And we have done at least, I want to say, 50 broadcasts together. And during the 2016 period, at the height of the campaign, I was on almost every day for an hour.
Wow. Going
back and forth with her on different issues. And she's a wonderful person, highly educated, unique perspectives. And she and I have found common ground on abuses of the deep state. She is outraged that a charity like the Clinton Foundation and the Clintons themselves would take advantage of the desperately poor Haitian community and other communities of color around the globe. So this is a wonderful person, and I've really enjoyed working with her on air. In fact, I'm trying to get her to come on this show, but she's very coy about it.
I think she doesn't like me.
No, she doesn't like George that much, I don't think. Remember George was supposed to go on her show and sort of forgot about it?
I do remember, and I can definitely sympathize with not liking George. It's a common occurrence, but enough of that. Now, Was there anything else we wanted to touch on before
Again, this is another, I mean, we're well into a process here of creating a lot of content, both in video, audio, you with the
funny images?
These are great images, they really
Thanks.
are.
I got to revisit the book idea and see if there's a way to make it work and have it not cost too much money. But I mean, again, so much of my time is taken away by these lawsuits, and I can't tell you, Charles, how many parallels I see when I'm listening to these pundits talking about what's happening with Donald Trump and how the Constitution warned against you. Basically, one of the biggest issues that keeps coming up is that they're saying they've lowered the bar for impeachment so much, and the fact that the Congress and the American people have allowed it to go this far does not bode well for the future of the presidency, irrespective of Donald Trump, because now it's just going to be used again and again as a political tool. It's basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Log jamming, hog tying, slowing down the presidency, preventing him from being able to do anything, even with interacting with foreign leaders. Something just happened to us, Charles.
What's that?
Something bad. The network seems to, okay, I think it's back. Weird. I think we're back.
Good.
The cameras are frozen. No, there's a microphone disaster happening. Now it's back again. Okay, I think we're back.
Sorry about that, it's gremlins.
It's something. I hope it's working. It seems to be working. Okay. They're screwing up the presidency because basically they're just going to impeach this guy, now they're going to impeach Trump again if they're not happy with this outcome.
We'll see how this gets resolved. I mean, we'll see. I don't think we should go to the place that the UK is in, where in a lawsuit the loser pays. But we're clearly, for
Why
both.
not? I like that.
Well,
If it's a frivolous lawsuit.
but we're clearly in a place where, with regard to this matter, I mean, it's just hypocritical in the extreme. And these are three of the main hypocrites. Most of the mainstream media, and particularly anybody who would get up huffing and puffing on MSNBC or CNN or the major networks, opining about this is worse than Watergate and this is this and that. I mean, these people are really embarrassingly stupid.
Well, it's worse than Watergate because this is, nonsense. Watergate may have been as well. This is inspiring me to go back and learn more about Watergate, because I think that might have also been manipulated as well. But we just, as the public, didn't have as many tools and resources to be able to scrutinize what's going on. We just didn't have access to as much information. And this is definitely the first lawfare impeachment. And while we're talking right now, I'm caused to wonder, Adam Schiff went to Harvard Law. I wonder if he ever had any classes with Lawrence Tribe.
Oh, probably.
How can we find out?
I'm sure do a little bit more research. People in the crowd maybe can help us out.
People should see if there's any connection between Lawrence Tribe and Adam Schiff. I mean, we know that Lawrence Tribe is doing all kinds of stuff with the Lawfare blog. He's a contributor over there. We know that Ben Witties is constantly tweeting stupid nonsense.
Isn't that pronounced Nitwitties?
Nitwitties is constantly tweeting stupid nonsense, and we'll have to see what happens with those guys. But Charles, I think it might be an appropriate time to hit the slides.
Sure. So I think when we think about the overall tenor of what's happened in the last several months here, we had this headlong rush, in the House, where the minorities' rights were trammeled, completely run roughshod over by Schiff and the lawfare crowd and the mainstream media. It's like, you're accused, you got no rights. Right. There's no due process. You're accused, which means everybody knows you're guilty. It's just a matter of time before, the mark guilty gets placed in your forehead. So let's not waste resources. Let's just rush. It's the polar opposite of what the founders wanted to make sure was the fundamental essence of government in this country. You are indeed innocent until proven guilty. And actually, just remind the audience that one of my ancestors a long time ago was somebody who seriously cheesed off King James II. He was this guy called Major General Robert Smith. And Robert Beverly, actually. It was Robert Beverly. Both of these people were ancestors, but it was Robert Beverly who
Not Robert Smith? He didn't...
Both of them.
Frontman in The Cure?
No, it's a common name, of course. But Major General Robert Beverly was a substantial landowner and a figure in Virginia. He had tens of thousands of acres of land in Virginia, multiple plantations, multiple this, multiple that, but he was very much involved. I think he was trained as a lawyer, and he held a variety of positions, including, I think, Speaker of the House of Burgesses or some high position. He did not like King James II. And King James II rose into power and was taking undue liberties with the colony of Virginia. And Beverly basically just said, he may be king over there, but I'm here. Right. And you can't do this kind of stuff. And so King James basically arranged for his goons to go in and hold Beverly without any charges, just to round him up and just
Sounds a lot like Robert Mueller.
Exactly. And there are some who argue that this is in 1680 some odd, that Jefferson used that particular experience as one rationale for putting the right to habeas corpus, I think, in the body of the Constitution as opposed to the Bill of Rights. So you're almost doing the same thing here with this bullshiff, of Schiff. And we should first ask the question, what in the hell, there's your answer, what in the hell is the head of the Intelligence Committee? And it's under his leadership, the lack of Intelligence Committee. Right. What the hell is that guy doing orchestrating this impeachment? Since when is a counterintelligence? I mean, there's no proof anywhere. There's no credible evidence that Donald Trump was acting on behalf of foreign interests. There's there's a lot of credible evidence that the Clintons, through their foundation, took tens, hundreds of millions of dollars from foreign governments via their in quotes foundation, while she was a secretary, while she was a senator, while she was the Secretary of State, while she was a presidential candidate, and none of these monies, none of these government grants, which governments claim they gave to the Clinton Foundation for the period 1998 to 2007, there has never been an accounting for that money. So there's a lot of suggestion that the Clintons and the Obamas and the Bushes may have been taking money from foreign powers.
Yeah.
And you take all their net worth, all those people's net worth up, and you compare it to Donald Trump, it's a fraction of Donald Trump's net worth from private industry, yet they don't have to explain any of their government grants. And now we're going to impeach, through this process. This is what Lawrence Tribe, a vaunted professor of Harvard Law School, I mean, this guy should be working for the Harvard Moving Company, one way, moving from his house into Guantanamo Bay.
Well, instead of vaunted, he should be vaulted.
Yeah. I mean, this guy is a disgrace, and quite frankly, people at Harvard should be thinking quite deeply about whether is this the type of set of precedents that Harvard Law School once distinguished, that Harvard Law School and its faculty wants to let stand. Here we have Lawrence Tribe saying that this Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vidman is somebody that he extols. I mean, this makes me wonder, how deep are the connections among these various professors with foreign government donors that can give unlimited amounts of money to Harvard?
Look, he has a lot of followers, Charles.
Right.
Yeah, I don't trust this guy at all. I think he's trouble. Dr. Corsi told us that he has disliked him since the age of 17, which I like a good grudge, Charles.
Yeah, that's like a long-standing one.
Like a 55-year-old grudge.
Yeah. You got his phone number there.
Oh, I'll call him up. Maybe we should. Maybe we could arrange like a UFC bout between Dr. Corsi and Lawrence Tribe. I don't know.
You see there's his CV. Let's look at that.
Where is it?
It's on the right.
Oh yeah.
There, yeah. If we hit that, I wonder where he went to. If he went to Yale Law School.
No, I think he went to Harvard, didn't he?
Let's say. Harvard Law School, yeah.
Yeah.
Summa cum laude in math. Did really well in ways.
Phi Beta Kappa. Oh, I got to show
Beta
this.
Krappa.
I got to show this to David Hawkins.
Yeah. The Joseph Beale Prize for the person most likely to destroy the reputation of Harvard.
Or the Republic.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are absolutely disgraceful in my view. And this guy would have been fired from 21st Century 3D before he walked in the door. He's breaking the first rule of CVs. 8 pages, 9 pages? Sorry. Make it 1.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the slides.
Back to the slides, indeed. So we have this crazy process where the majority in the House rushed out a vote, and Nancy Pelosi, the people who were rushing the vote, saying we've got to vote, we've got to have a decision right away. They rushed the vote, and then Nancy says, on second thought, never mind, we'll just sit on it. Maybe I'll send it over, maybe I won't send it over. It's all up to me. This is the kind of imperial power. Right. That nobody is supposed to have in a system of checks and balances. I don't think the founders ever imagined that somebody as corrupt, and I think Nancy Pelosi is corrupt as shit, as Schiff as well, in this whole thing. We're going to talk about the Ukraine issue, but I don't think the founders ever imagined that people would be this bold, this nakedly partisan, and say, we're going to just, by the time you figure this mess out, we'll have accomplished our objective. We'll cause as much harm as we could to Donald Trump. And we'll be judged wrong, but we still will have hurt.
They got it over the plate. Yeah, that's the whole goal of lawfare, is that they know where the holes are and they're going right in them. I still say the reason Nancy Pelosi is not giving these articles everybody's sitting there like, why isn't she doing it? I can't understand this strategy. It's because in the Senate they'll be subject to due process, and immediately it will fall to a motion to dismiss because it's not demonstrating that he's broken any laws. It's great for yelling about on the news and smearing his campaign for 2020, but it has no legal basis and no chance of surviving the motion to dismiss.
Right. And so, but what I think will happen, and we're a long way away, people like to say, it's a whole nother baseball season, but we're a long, long way away from the election of 2020. By then, barring something taking all this off the table for other reasons, I think we're looking at a wave election, because I think what we're looking at is people saw, in the case of the Republican-controlled Congress under Donald Trump, it's difficult to explain the lack of progress from 2017 and 18, other than to say that there's a whole bunch of corrupt never-Trumpers among the Republican ranks at that moment in time, and why they couldn't have made more progress in the House and the Senate in the first 2 years. In the second period, now that we see what happens when you let Nancy Pelosi and her ilk, President Swalwell, aka Farticus.
President Swalwell?
That's what Corey Lewandowski called him. And the series of all these absurd people who get in front of the camera every time there's anything to say on the Democratic side of the thing. The American public looks at this and they see what happens when these corrupt and immature and immoral and lawless crowd gets anywhere near power. And I hope that the combination of the money disadvantage that the Democrats now face across the country, the enthusiasm gap, which is gigantic. You have people ranting and raving about how Hiawatha got a great crowd, because she got 1,100 people or 1,200 people at some meeting of...
Didn't her own brother say she was lying about something? And speaking of immature and ignorant and a communist...
There you go. Yeah.
But her brother said that she was lying about her uncle being...
No, her father. She's going around saying, that is to say, Hiawatha is saying that, she came from modest circumstances. Her father was a janitor.
Right.
Her father was not a janitor. But of course, anything she says, you should assume it's a lie. That's amazing. Why I call her Hiawatha.
She is just so far outside the... I would, I'm totally open to the concept of a female president, but we need to find a female who's not also a dope.
And a male who's not also a dope.
Right.
But this person is... there's not been enough said yet about how she rose to become a tenured professor of law at Harvard. It wasn't because she had an 8-page CV like Larry Tribe.
9.
Or 9. It was because Harvard, in my view, Harvard was under attack, fairly under attack, for not having a diverse faculty, anything approaching a diverse faculty, and they thought, well, this is great. We can get a Republican Native American woman from Oklahoma. This is perfect. We'll tick all the boxes off, and then we can say, see, we've got a Native American. Stop your yammering. But anyway, I think we are seeing signs. There's something I don't have up here in the link of an Atlanta black entrepreneur saying people don't understand the degree to which this tax bill is helping small and medium-sized companies, particularly minority-owned small and medium-sized companies. People don't understand how the immigration crackdown is increasing the employment opportunities for resident citizens who happen to be minority, Hispanic, black, et cetera. And where the calculation was, and I remember I got the lecture on the blue wall that Trump would never pierce.
Blue wall?
Blue wall.
Cops?
Blue wall is the theory that the blue states have so many electoral college votes that it's very difficult and will become even more difficult for a Republican to win because the electoral college map is stacked in favor of states that are controlled by Democrats. And I think what you're seeing is this decade-long period where minority groups reflexively voted for the Al Sharptons and the Jesse Jacksons and the Bill Clintons and the people who would say that they do all kinds of good stuff without realizing that these people were misery merchants. They're fond of saying, this is miserable and that's miserable and that we need to tax the rich and we need to do this and put me in or I'll punish you. The beatings will stop when morale improves type of person. That people are looking at that and saying, wait a minute, Donald Trump went in there with zero political experience, with literally the deep state trying to get him impeached on day one, the day after the election.
Yeah.
They've been trying to do this. Look what he's been able to accomplish with
Amazing.
all this stuff. And he's being held down by his arms and his legs. Everyone's trying to, and he nonetheless gets all this stuff done. And then people are looking with their own eyes at their paychecks.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have multiple job offers and they have greater leverage with their employer and they have more options. And the United States seems to be doing really well as China's falling apart. Europe has fallen apart. Much of the world is in disarray, not because of the United States, but because
globalism.
There's structural problems around the world. And these people who are into big bureaucracies and corruption and waste don't seem to understand that's not going to work for the people. It may work for them. It's not going to work for the people.
I think he's the best president we've had in my lifetime, seriously.
Well, that would include
I know
Reagan.
you like Ronald Reagan a lot, but I don't know.
So Reagan was, remember that back when Reagan was president, we were in a Cold War. You could say that Russia's a rival and this. Back in 1980, or January 20th, 1981, when Ronald Reagan swore, his inauguration oath, there were the strategic nuclear weapons, hydrogen bombs trained on the United States of America. China was far away from deciding that it might go down the track of being in a capitalist, global, market-based economy. And this guy had, several decades of corrupt Democrats doing their level best to destroy the economy. And they put him in, then he gets shot.
Yeah, that was bad.
And he was not young.
But also like Trump, he was from the entertainment world, so that's kind of interesting.
Maybe there's a lesson there.
Maybe. Yeah, but Charles, I wanted to ask you, did you see this appearance, I think it was over the past few days, of Al Sharpton on Fox News, where he referred to Donald Trump as a con man?
That's good. That's rich.
Like, whoa. Yeah, next we're going to have Gerald Nadler saying, listen, fat. It's like, he's up on the con man there.
Right. I know. He puts the con in con man.
Right. I mean, that was just, I think everybody was sort of like, next topic.
Right. So I think we know enough to know that we're not going to have the swamp actually drained until 2021 at the earliest. I mean, it's not...
Swamp's not going to drain itself, Charles.
Well, I understand, but you're going to have the public. If you remember when in October of 2008, as I was putting my arguments against GE out there, we had the financial crisis really start moving, and there was a moment actually where Obama, I think he was President-elect Obama, said, I'm the person who stands between you and the men and women with pitchforks. That's what he was saying to various people. I think we're close. There's a different kind of group with pitchforks now, looking at this messing, looking at Epstein and Weinstein and Clinton and now Obama with his absurd payments for book deals and other things, looking at the inside Washington, D.C. crowd getting rich and the inside multinational GE crowd getting rich, you know, whether or not the constituents do well, whether or not the company shareholders do well, the people on the inside of the swamp, they come out smelling clean or appearing to smell clean maybe, but they come out considerably richer than when they began life for the experience of laundering money, basically, of letting the real crooks off the hook.
Yeah. They
get their pieces. And in the Clintons' cases, it's estimated, who knows what the real number is, but it's estimated in the hundreds of millions. Obama certainly seems to be heading towards hundreds of millions. And I think the people are sick of this, and the insiders in both parties who believe that the status quo that operated through 2016 is going to be something we'll ever return to, they are badly misled in my view.
Yeah.
So it takes the public to stand up there. We're going to have to spend, let's hope we're able to do this the next 11 months, we're going to have to continue to encourage, to motivate people to get out there and call these bullshiffers out. So with that, maybe we should just quickly remind people that this is a different approach. I guess we sailed off into the wilderness in June, starting in June of 2017 with this idea. We haven't really changed the format much. We've tried to learn from it.
Refined,
improve it with the suggestions that we get from people, and we appreciate those many suggestions. We try to incorporate those that make the most sense to us. And we caution people that this is really, though Jason and I have this banter, you're going to learn the most from this process if you go and check the links that we put out there, check the facts that we put out there for yourself. You see, we're trying to shed new light on evidence that's out there that the mainstream people can't be bothered to look at. And once you start going through this process of actually seeing with your own eyes just how crooked these people are, taking in as many of these shows as you care to do. It's a lot. They're out there. This is, I guess, our 198th two-hour show, excluding, I think, the Corsi special.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of content here. There are a lot of slides that people can look through.
And, you know, Charles, if people haven't had a chance to see the rise of Skywalker, I won't ruin the end, but I will say that our Trump Wars is probably better. Save $18 as well. Yeah. We could have done that episode in 3D. That might have been nice. Help. Damn it, the sound keeps somehow. I don't want to touch it because it seems to come back. Okay, now I think it's back. That's so weird. I don't know why that keeps happening. Are you still with us? Okay, we're back. But the thing I wanted to point out to you, Charles, is that for each of the episodes, if people want to access the slides for themselves, they can go to the video description here. You're typically going to see this show more. You just click right on the words. You've got all of the sponsorship links. You've got the link to crowdsourcethetruth.com, and you'll see this little message, download Charles's presentation. You can click right on the link, and for each video, it's got the PDF presentation right there. You can download it to your own computer with this, the standard download icon, and then you can print it out and follow along, or just save a tree and read it right there on the screen. But it's a great way for people to go in deeper. I often find when I'm searching around for things, one link leads to the next, and just spending time with it will almost invariably lead people to more information perhaps than what even we discuss on the show.
Yeah, well, that's the whole intent of it. It's like this is the leave behind you would give to a potential client or a client in a board presentation or in a...
Almost like a swag bag version of the...
Right.
You put like a cell phone in there, $200. Damn it, what keeps happening to our sound, Charles?
I don't know.
Okay, that's really a disappointment. Nothing different about anything that we're doing. It's back now.
But if we were to just quickly go back to the playlist for a second.
Sure.
I've had one of our most loyal followers suggest the virtue of maybe publishing on LinkedIn, which I didn't know you could do, a short piece explaining each of the videos that we think it would make most sense to go back and look at. Mm-hmm. And that's something I want to think about, and I may well do. I also have the option of publishing in multiple different formats, blog posts, a review of perhaps the ones that I think are most relevant. And so that's something I may well try to do in the beginning of the year.
They have video streaming on LinkedIn, and I applied for it a long time ago, but they never, I guess they don't want me to do it because they never wrote back. And I think you might need to have LinkedIn Premium or something. I don't know. I wasn't able to publish video on LinkedIn.
Well, no, I would publish an article, a text piece that would then direct people to link to the video.
Got it.
It would be the idea. If people think that's a good idea, let me know, actually.
Sure.
And I'll devote some attention to it. But we now have quite a bit of content out there, and I would point out as well that I can report as of this moment, we have had nobody, not one single person connected to the Clintons or the Obamas or any of these crooked foundations that we've been talking about, come back and say, listen, cease and desist, what you're saying is wrong. We need you to correct this, we need to correct that, because there's no need to correct any of this. This stuff is accurate. And so today, we're actually going to take it up a notch, as Emerald, my favorite.
Boom. Or what does he say?
Bam.
Yeah.
Take it up a notch.
You know, Charles, people who were watching on D Live are telling me that the stream is down. That might be related to, no, it seems to be running. I don't know what's going on. There's something going on here, shenanigans-wise. I don't know what's causing that. It's always something, Jared.
If it's not one thing, it's another.
Exactly.
Rosanna Dana, whatever her name is. So if let's go. Yeah. So we have in this conservative treehouse, and specifically Sundance. The first link here is one we might want to jump into here. Sundance is really worth watching carefully. There's a lot of material that comes out here, and what they're trying to do. There's this writer called Natasha Bertrand. Yeah, bad egg.
Yeah, Lee Stranahan said the same thing about her. I had never heard about her before, but it's interesting that you brought her up.
Well, this is this Sundance bringing it up. And basically what people need to remember is that the current head of the CIA, Gina Haspel, was the London station chief during 2016. So the suspicion that I have, just from reading all this information, is that she would intimately know what John Brennan was doing with his friends, in quotes, over in the UK to try to get around those pesky little laws and regulations that the rest of we Americans have to abide by. And so they're trying various tactics to suggest that, well, you know, if Gina Haspel is not concerned about where we are right now, that means that nothing possibly could have gone wrong back in 2016.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Well, alternatively, it could mean that she thinks she's snookered Trump. And,
right.
And really here, this is, you know, I don't believe that Gina Haspel, and I especially don't think that John Brennan, deserves the benefit of the doubt right now. We were not talking about something minor. To hear all the caterwauling that came out of the Democrats about Donald Trump has been, you know, colluding with foreign powers to interfere in an election, and that might be illegitimate. That's exactly what these people were doing. They were interfering with allies, with the UK and others, whether formally through the government or informally through the old boys and women's clubs over there in the UK. They were intervening, in my view, to keep the con game going of unregulated globalism so that their political cronies and their donors and their friends around the world could continue doing these crooked deals and schemes, juicing the returns for themselves with government grants, large government grants that were solicited in the main, in theory, to better the lives of poor people and vulnerable people around the world. That's the game these crooks have been playing. And they've had the benefit of the doubt. They live fancily, they have their savings, they have their reputations and their book deals, and their pasts are now behind them. And it's time for us, we the people who paid for all this shit, to understand what in the hell Brennan was doing and Haspel was doing. And it shouldn't take much more time to reveal to we the people exactly what was going on. It's not like they have an excellent reason. You know, we were about to finish the whole war on ISIS and we'll wrap that up. Well, no, you weren't very far along in that. We were about to finish this war in Afghanistan. Well, no, actually not. You didn't do much there. We were about